Hello and thank you for joining me for another ITY video. Today I have with me on my right Meir Moalem. He is the CEO of Sky and Space Global, and on my left Meidad Pariente, Director of Sky and Space Global as well. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Alex.
So I thought the easiest way to start is the way I always start, and that's to ask you if you could please tell us about Sky and Space Global and what it does, and then we'll move on to a bit about your own history in the world of tech and the vision for the company. But let's start with the basics.
Well, Sky and Space Global is a company that we've set up a few months ago, has been listed in the Australian Securities Exchange, and our plan is to change the world for good. We plan to deploy a constellation of hundreds of nanosatellites in order to provide communication services. And we can talk later about our vision and why we think that's important, but basically we can provide the ability to communicate through telephone, through instant messaging, and also to transfer data from one place to another. So this is our plan, and this is what we're working for in the next 2 years.
Sure. And Meidad, anything you wanted to add to that?
We believe that communication is a basic right for each and every human being. And being such a basic right for our daily life, all conflicts were resolved using communication.
Sure.
There's a part of the world, there's a region, a huge region of this world that has no affordable services to allow basic communication, voice conversation, instant messaging.
The sort of things we take for granted.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
For us, it's like air.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
Really.
water, yeah.
And we're talking about the equatorial region in which half of the world population lives in. So this is why we built Sky and Space Global, and we really love everybody that believes our beliefs to join us.
Sure. Now we'll get to we may as well go straight to the Sky and Space vision. I can see it's behind us there, and we'll come to your backgrounds and how this is a startup company that's reaching right for the stars. You've
Exactly.
obviously got great vision there as well. But tell us the Sky and Space vision. I mean, you already mentioned it, but a bit more detail.
Yeah, well, as Meidad had said, we believe that communication is a basic right for everyone. And for us, we take it for granted. In a lot of areas of the world, it's very difficult. A lot of areas are without any means of communications other than existing satellite services,
Which are quite expensive, right?
Very expensive.
Yeah, much
very
more expensive than someone in the equatorial region in a third world country can ever afford to pay.
Exactly. And we feel that we can provide affordable communication service to anyone, anywhere, anytime, beginning with the equatorial belt and these parts of the world which have been unfortunate so far, and had no access to these kinds of services.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what then is a little of your own personal histories in the world of tech that have led you to today?
Well, I'll let Meidad, our CTO and director,
please
start.
Well, actually, I was about to have a professional soccer player career.
Right.
And I left this career to pursue a bachelor degree in physics, and later on started off as a satellite operator.
Wow.
More than 20 years ago, in the first Israeli communication satellite, Amos. I joined the Israeli aerospace industry, later on progressed in this industry and became chief engineer for several satellites.
Yeah, so a rich history there in this field.
Yeah. And after 20 years, I decided that it's time to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And I left Israeli aerospace industry. And in the meantime, I became very much aware of the nanosatellite industry, which is the Model T of space industry. And it's based on new space, which means commercial entities, small companies changing the world, like the mobile industry was 10, 15 years ago.
Sure. I mean, it's almost like, and this is probably a bad analogy, but it's almost like you're taking advantage of unlicensed Wi-Fi in the sky. This to deliver a network. I mean, these are satellites that presumably there's no other satellites in the area, or you're able to position them in a way that is not interfering with other satellites out there, and you're able to then deliver these services.
Absolutely. We'll have a short video later on demonstrating this. But make no mistake, the size of the satellite doesn't change the fact that you have to regulate and be according to all the international laws. So frequencies will be regulated, satellites will be registered within the United Nations registration of satellites. We are fully insured in our endeavor. This is a full commercial entity, and we just tap into the technology that allows a very sophisticated satellite to be packed into a small shape.
Sure. Well, miniaturization has been something humans have worked on in recent times a lot. So, I mean, it just makes sense. And presumably, given the billions of dollars of cost that satellites normally cost, making it smaller makes it cheaper.
Exactly. And what happened also in the recent years, other than miniaturization and the advance of computers, etc., people started to realize the commercial value of space assets. For small companies, not only for large, global corporates with billions of dollars of expenses, but also for smaller companies who can take advantage of these technologies moving forward and start to use space for commercial purposes.
Well, it's great to see, because I mean, before today, really, it was all about governments launching space shuttles and things to the moon, and there's been little since.
That's right.
I'm glad to see that individuals and companies can be breaching into space, which, as we all know, is the final frontier.
Right. It is.
Boss, maybe you should tell.
How did you guys meet?
Yeah. Well. As you know, in Israel, going to the military is compulsory to all of us. So I joined the Air Force to the Flight Academy. I became a jet fighter pilot. I've done that for a few years.
Well, not many people can say that. It's pretty amazing stuff.
Did my operational service, and later on I went, while serving within the Air Force, I studied physics, and I went back to the Air Force headquarters to be in charge of the Israeli space program.
Yeah. So you were a rocket scientist?
In a way, yeah.
Because they always love to say it's not rocket science, but it is, right?
Yeah, we call ourselves space science.
Space science, excellent.
Yeah, space scientists or space engineers.
Yeah.
And in a way, I was in charge of the Israeli space program for the flight of the first Israeli astronaut, Ilan Ramon, on the space shuttle Columbia, which unfortunately ended in a mishap. By the way, this pin is from the Columbia mission.
For his memory.
For his memory and the memory of the other astronauts who died with him on the shuttle accident. And later on I was in charge of other satellites in his satellite programs. And when I retired, and I know I look young, I am young, but you can retire from the Air Force at an early age.
Sure.
A few months after I retired, I met this fantastic guy, Meidad, and we realized that we have a lot of things in common. And we thought about the idea of putting our knowledge and expertise and know-how into use and try to find out a commercial value into it. We thought about it for a lot. Yeah, we thought about it for a while, actually for 2 years.
Yeah.
And went into the detailed design and strategy building and the business model and whatever of Sky and Space. And once we felt that we are ready to push the button, we started looking for investment. And luckily for us, there was a group of Australian investors in Israel.
Yeah.
They were looking to do some kind of high-tech investment. They heard about us. We met for lunch. They offered us the possibility of receiving funding through an RTO, or reverse takeover, in the Australian Securities Exchange. We knew nothing about it.
Sure.
But after we thought about it for a while, we decided that they just gave a better proposal than the other VCs or private investors we were talking with. And here we are today.
Well, that's the story. Because normally people would want to go on NASDAQ or something else, but I've heard of other companies from the US launching on the ASX. So this is a new trend, and it's good to see.
People here are very nice. Yeah, I must say they are very convincing and very nice.
It's only the only problem is the travel here, which takes about 24 hours with 2 very long flights.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything is great. And usually, what happens with startups is that you get your seed money, and a few years later, your second round of funding, your third round of funding, and 5 years down the road, you go to an IPO and through NASDAQ or whatever. And for us, it was a kind of a reverse procedure. We were IPO'd and going to the stock exchange on day one. Yeah, actually, but
it's like a lift off or a blast off.
Yeah,
it dovetails beautifully with what you guys are doing.
Right.
So who is your satellite hardware partner, and how did you find them?
First of all, as I mentioned, I became very much part of the nanosatellite industry since 2006, and I was
and that's a decade now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's a decade ago. Unbelievable. And later on, I was in charge of the first Israeli nanosatellite project that I built with high school kids. So more than 2 years now, the high school nanosatellite is in space, fully operational. It's currently the only active high school nanosatellite.
Wow.
And it's a small community in which everybody helps everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we say that in the nanosatellite industry, we have no competition. And you know why we have no competition? Because everybody is our partners or future partners.
Yeah.
So we thought about teaming up with a very good group that we know that can deliver. And we went to our friends from Denmark, GomSpace, and they have a very good solution for our communication system. So we asked them whether they will be our manufacturers for the first 3 satellites. Lucky for us, they said yes. And currently we are about a month from the critical design review of the satellites, and they will be ready for launch next February.
Right.
So this is a very fast project.
And that's the first 3 satellites to prove out the rest of the system, which will be hundreds of nanosatellites.
Exactly. What we thought about, as I said before, we spent a few years thinking about how to build the entire thing, which is Sky and Space Global. And we thought that the best way to do that is to get the least funding required to demonstrate the maximum capabilities of the system. So with these 3 satellites, which we will be launched in 8 months from now, even in April 2017, on board the Indian launcher, the PSLV rocket.
I was going to ask where it's launching from.
Well, from India. They will demonstrate the full capabilities of the entire 200 satellites, and the capabilities are point-to-point communication. So you can take a phone on one part of the world and talk to another guy on another part of the world. The second demonstration is the inter-satellite communication, which is something which is unique to us. Not only the communication itself, but the software protocol, the management of the network itself will be demonstrated.
And is that software that you've written with your...
Yeah, we are developing it.
So that's proprietary communication software.
Exactly, that's our own IP. A big challenge, very big challenge to if you can imagine, just to handle 200 different nodes in space autonomously without any human intervention.
I mean, it sounds like a plot from a James Bond movie or something.
Actually, between ourselves, we call our constellation the Borg of communication.
Which
the Borg.
The Borg.
Yeah,
which any Star Trek enthusiast will understand immediately.
Because it will be fully autonomous. Each and every satellite will know the entire information. Well, all other 199 satellites are, which is the optimal route. If one satellite fails, then the other compensate for that. And this will be fully autonomous. And we are happy to be one of the leading groups in this field of making satellites like robots are here and now, and taking all the advantage of the technology up into space.
Well, I mean, you know, you're talking about the Borg and we're having a laugh, but you mentioned robots. It makes me think of Skynet. Hopefully we're not launching Skynet.
we are using ideas and concepts.
It's Skynet and space.
Skynet and space.
Well, actually, there is a satellite operator
called
in
Skynet.
the UK called Skynet.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we're laughing.
Not a popular name. Well, what I wanted to say is we are using concepts and ideas from artificial intelligence built into our system, because that's the way to handle it. Otherwise, you always have to interfere and not only monitor the system, but always have to tell it what to do. And it's not only time consuming, it's resource consuming. So it's not, it doesn't fit into our program to provide affordable services, which is the whole idea.
And keeping lean and mean.
And keeping lean and mean. And although it may sound not that difficult, people may think, well, it's only 200 satellites, what's the big idea? It's very difficult. These things are moving at 8 kilometers per second. They are in different orbits. The orbit is keep changing all the time due to the gravity and the astrodynamics, and all of this has to be taken into account.
And unlike in that movie Gravity with George Clooney and you've got real gravity issues, real orbital issues to have to deal with.
Yeah,
right.
So what's the geostationary orbit? Is it low, medium, high?
So our satellites will be in low Earth orbit, somewhere between 600 and 800 kilometers. We are very much aware of the space debris issue. We take our constellation seriously. We take our responsibility seriously, and we're going to manage the constellation in a manner to reduce any chance of collision to almost zero. What you can see in the movie here, running in the background, it's the 200 satellites.
So that's all 200. Yes, not all at the same time.
Each and every dot represent a satellite, a nanosatellite, and they are small as dots. This is why we call them diamonds. They spread a lot of light, but they're very small. Each and every plane is in different altitude, so no chances of...
So even when they cross on the screen...
Exactly. It's like...
They're not that close.
At least 10 kilometers apart, like air traffic control. And what you can see here, you have full coverage 24/7
of the equator.
Of the equator, plus minus 15 degrees. So from 15 latitude north to 15 latitude south, we'll have full coverage 24/7. And these satellites also have interlinks, so they communicate between each other and they keep their orbit. We call that station keeping.
And so I don't know if you're able to say, but I mean, how much do the three satellites cost, and the insurance to insure these must also cost a lot, because inevitably, sadly, these sometimes are launch vehicles.
What we can disclose is, without specifying the actual price that it cost us, is that we are a listed company. Everything is out there. Everything is transparent. So we've raised 4.6 million Australian dollars. We've had some small cash reserves in the company before that, and that is suffice for us to build, launch, operate, and demonstrate the capabilities of these three satellites, and of course the capital required for the operation of the company, the software development, the corporate administration here in Australia. All of that is being funded, so we are lean and mean, and we plan to stay that way.
And to launch another 200, you'll have another round of
probably so. We are already, as I've said, we spent a lot of time thinking about it. We are spending a lot of time planning for the future and preparing ourselves. So, for example, we've signed an agreement with the Virgin Galactic Launcher 1 and a letter of intent because we feel that they are a good fit to our requirements.
And I read that this will launch all 200 satellites at once.
No. The difference is that for the first three satellites we kind of hitchhike, or we get to ride share an existing launch.
Uber of space.
Exactly, Uber of space, something like that. Uber, but
much more expensive.
The difference is
with an incredible surge price, right?
Exactly, and also in Uber you can select your destination. In here you just you hop aboard the launcher and it will drop you off somewhere. So,
well, you know where you want to go. Obviously, it's going to put you in the right spot.
Of course, but for the constellation, we need to control the schedule of the launch, the parameters of the orbit, the altitude, the inclination, etc., etc. So we need to buy our own dedicated launch. Now, because these are nanosatellites, you can put a lot of them on one launch. 20, 25, 30, 40.
Dozens.
So over the course of several Virgin Galactic launches, when they start happening, the additional cargo will be your nano satellite.
What you see here, it's our 2020 vision, pun intended, sorry. And the answer to your question is no. The Virgin Galactic launches will be dedicated to us. So that means we are the primary payload.
Excellent.
This is a way to allow us to control the date and the destination of each and every launch. And as Meir mentioned, it's a perfect match from our point of view. And
great extra business for Virgin Galactic.
Absolutely.
So now I've read that the satellites can rearrange themselves to suit particular configurations, and this made me think that they must have some sort of propulsion system, can move around, but that's not the case. What does it mean?
Well, They do have propulsion systems
Yeah.
in order to perform what I mentioned before, the station keeping, to keep the altitudes and to keep the relative distances.
And just quickly, what will that propulsion system be? Ion drive or nuclear?
No,
I don't know.
We will-
Probably not nuclear. But
We will not say at the moment,
Okay.
but it will be sufficient to provide for our
to provide propulsion.
requirements.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Look,
Yeah,
I'll
what we
find out
can
one day.
share regarding the propulsion system,
Warp drive.
Not yet, but it will be what we call green propellant. So it will be a safe system,
Excellent.
not hazardous, not
Yeah.
toxic, that will allow us to launch the satellites without any kind of endangering the launchers or the public.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
But just
to answer the rearranging.
Yeah,
what does
just
that
to
mean?
add to your question, we have some rearranging capabilities for the satellites themselves, using the propulsion that we can maintain the distance between the satellites themselves
Sure.
according to the actual
more
requirements.
But it's more to do with allocating particular amounts of
Exactly,
bandwidth. or-
exactly.
Yeah.
Since we
Allocating
are-
resources within the system.
Yeah, since we are developing a very challenging but also sophisticated network management software, we would be able to allocate resources to different parts of the world according to demand, because as you can understand, when it's morning in Africa, then it's night in Australia. I'm sorry, then it's evening or afternoon in Australia, and it's still night in South America.
And I can actually
so
see
there's
just-
different demand in different areas of the world.
Yeah, and I can just see from the video behind you that actually the top part of Australia is actually within the
Yes.
That's right.
sphere. So someone in Darwin or Cairns might be able to get access.
Exactly.
Not only that, also airlines and shipping
Sure, yeah.
going in and out of Australia. Imagine being in a yacht or a ship and able to WhatsApp or text.
Well, I mean, people can do that now. I've been reading articles about
but
Inmarsat
you need
and others.
to pay arms and
Yeah, that's right. And what I was going to say was, although that you've got that capability now, and they're using it for broadband, even to deliver, like Netflix to
Yeah.
maritime vessels,
That's
and
right.
I've seen specialized services for that. I mean, this is a like a backup system, or just another. I mean, these days people carry around multiple devices.
Let me put it in
multiple
simple
carriers,
terms.
yeah.
If a guy on a yacht holds
Sat
a
phone.
sat phone of one of our future competitors,
Yeah.
and he's paying X,
Yeah.
whatever,
Mhm.
for them, he'll pay less for us.
Sure.
So if someone comes up to you and says, "I'll provide you the same service for a better price," then
Well, I mean, also, I mean, you might want to have a backup, be on one satellite
That's
network, be on
right.
another. It makes sense.
that's right. For emergency,
Yeah.
for sure.
So the other question that people will be wondering, if they don't already know about Sky and Space, is you hear about these other satellite systems, and that's broadband. Everyone's talking about broadband, and it's very expensive, and there's also issues where you've got too many people on, and it's sucking the it doesn't become broadband after a while when there's too many people. So what are the speeds that you're looking at, in addition to voice services?
Yeah.
But it depends on the end user device. At the end of the day, it's all about the link budget. So for handheld devices, you should expect around 100 kilobit per second.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's more stationary, it could be on car, ship, a plane, or even a building.
Yeah.
You should expect somewhere between 2 to 3 megabit per second.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. And so, for the 100 kilobits, I mean, that's plenty for text messaging and WhatsApp.
It's,
This is what we thought.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that the service that we plan to provide is not a broadband service.
Yeah.
So we do not plan to provide fast internet, broadband,
Gigabit
high
per
gigabit per second
Sure,
service.
yeah.
No, we're not there.
At least not in Sky and Space 1.0.
That's right.
Maybe in a few
Yeah.
years.
Good question, and we
Yeah.
relate to
Yeah,
one point.
Yeah. We will provide narrowband services.
Mhm.
You would be able to have a phone conversation. You
Yeah.
would be able to text your friends, and you
Sure.
would be able to send emails or data packages. And if you think about it, most of what we do on a day-to-day basis with our phone is texting.
Sure.
Whether it be WhatsApp, Snapchat, or some other WeChat
Emailing.
or other app that you're using per
Yeah.
your choice. But this is most of what we're doing. And remember, we're talking about areas of the world where there is no
Connectivity at
alternative,
all,
and
yeah.
currently there's no technology whatsoever.
Well, they might have the expensive, commercial satellite
That's right.
services, but
That's
not
right.
something inexpensive.
That's
Yeah.
right, but not for the general public,
Yeah.
because they cannot afford it. So if people are expecting that we will provide them high-speed surfing to watch high-definition videos,
Yeah.
we're not in that field.
Sure.
We're not saying that there's not a requirement for that.
Sure.
We only feel that the technology has not matured to the stage that it can be affordable on a wide basis to the general public. As you know, there are initiatives in the world and there are companies which are providing this service.
I mean, even Google with its balloons, and stuff like that. So what do you think people will be paying to access the service when it goes live? And what sort of devices will they be using? Will you have your own handsets or sat sleeves or that sort of thing?
All of the above.
All of the above, yeah. We started by saying the plan is to provide affordable service. Affordable service doesn't mean only that you would pay lesser rates to Sky and Space Global. It means that through the entire holistic approach, you would be paying less. That means that we would have to provide affordable ways to connect to our systems.
Sure.
And these will be in a large variety of possibilities that we cannot disclose at the moment, but we can say that it can be anywhere between a handheld device to a dongle, to a hotspot, to a sleeve,
the sort of things we're used to today.
Device on the roof of your house or whatever.
Yeah.
If you have a $30 smartphone, we would like you to purchase a $300 satellite phone. So you will use your own device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the expected lifespan of each satellite, and what sort of protections do they have to put in now to protect from those micro meteorites or that George Clooney gravity scenario, things blowing up?
Yeah.
What's the short version on that?
I'll let Meidad, our CTO, handle that
Okay.
question.
First of all, the lifespan of the satellites connected directly to what you asked regarding Sky and Space 1.0.
1.0.
So within our business plan, we have this idea of upgrading the system on a yearly basis. So satellite lifespan is somewhere between 5 to 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
We plan after 4 years to replace between 20 to 25% of the system because
Each year,
in order to tap into the new technology evolving, the idea of trying to predict what will be 5 years from now is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
it's moving so fast.
Exactly. So
8 kilometers per second, didn't you say?
Yeah.
So by 2020, our 2020 vision will have 200 satellites, and then in 2021, we're going to replace fully operational satellites. Why? Because in 2021, you have better technology. So you have SSG 1.1, and then in 2022, it will be 2.0, and then and so on and so on. And in each and every year, you'll have 4 generations of technology, space-proven technology in space, and this is our plan.
And always we stay at the forefront of technology because we always have at least 25% of the fleet which is in the state-of-the-art of the space-proven technology.
Which would mean that as the broadband speeds increase, you'll increase along with them.
Yeah,
that's it. Everything we said is based on current space-proven technology. Yeah. It may be better in a month from now.
Yeah, so that's quite an aggressive upgrade schedule, right? That no one else is doing it that fast.
Absolutely. If you take traditional space industry,
they take decades, don't they?
They launch for somewhere between 12 to 15 years, and they start the project 3 years prior to launch. So by the end of the service, you get this 2 decades old satellite with the technology that is no longer relevant. And regarding the question of space debris, lucky for us, our satellites are very, very small. So we did 2 things. First of all, we chose orbits in which no other satellite operator. So it's no man's land regarding space operations.
I mean, that's very lucky, because isn't the Earth littered with
nothing is by chance. You know? It's not luck.
No, well, it's planning, but I mean, it's just incredible that there isn't a huge amount of satellites already there.
Well, that goes back to our vision. That's part of what we said at the start. This area of the world has been
underserved, ignored,
neglected by the operators today because
it's not profitable from their point of view.
They consider it not profitable. We consider it also profitable, but also that we can do some good to that. So this is why there are not many or almost none satellites in these orbits. But more than that, we feel that we are responsible. And we need to act responsibly. So our satellites adhere to all of the international conventions and agreements. For example, Meidad has mentioned the space debris issue. we not only decommission the satellites from operation.
I was going to say, yeah, what happens to them?
Yeah, we decay them into the atmosphere in order to burn. Yeah, in order not to have any leftovers in space.
They're small enough to just burn and vaporize in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
We consider
small enough is this size.
Oh yeah.
People need to understand what are we talking about.
We consider ourselves good citizens of space. Operation in space is important, and we would like to have the freedom to act not only for ourselves, for everybody else.
So do you think you'll also expand the range of the network in future iterations of the company to have more of Australia or Europe and the US?
Yeah, it is within our program, because the way we do it is a kind of a modular network. So from the first 3 to the 200, although it's a very big jump, it's just scaling up. So from 200 to 500 to 800 to 1200 is scaling up the system, and this will be done in the future according to what actually happens in the market and within the company.
And you will have all the technology proven. Your software operating systems will all be very sophisticated.
That's right, and there's a lot of space in space.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of room for additional 1,000.
There's a lot of room on the frontier, right?
Yeah, right.
The reason Meir mentioned the number 1,200, this is the number of satellites required for a full coverage
of the globe.
From pole to pole.
Yeah.
And the next phase after the first 200 will come from revenues. So we'll have this possibility to modular expansion of the system.
Yeah. And I mean, with the handsets and hotspots and all the rest, it'll be like a traditional satellite device. You need to be outside to get line of sight.
Yes.
Is there?
Or actually, to be more accurate, the antenna
needs to be outside. But the Wi-Fi can be beamed inside.
Exactly.
If you want to do that.
Exactly. This is the idea of a hotspot.
Yeah, that's right. So look, you mentioned before, Meidad, that looking 5 years into the future was just crazy because it's the thing moving so fast. But you know, what then do you predict might the future look like in a decade's time? You know, even though it's doubly crazy to do that.
I will relate to the space industry. So I see that in 10 years from now, we'll see the space industry in the hands of commercial entities. This shift is starting from government and large corporates to small commercial entities. In the near future, it will be like smartphones and tablets. It will be an everyday commodity.
Yeah. And May, what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I totally agree with Meidad, and I think when Meidad said about trying to predict the future, he meant on the hardware side. That if you can use new hardware, why not do that? And why use the hardware now for 20 years from now if you can replace the fleet at each time? We certainly, and we talk a lot about it between ourselves, we certainly think a lot about what will happen in the future. Relating to what Meidad said, I fully agree. Part of my career I was also involved in unmanned aerial systems and vehicles, and they have gone through a revolution in the last 2 years. More and more commercial entities are entering the field, and it's becoming more and more available. I mean, you can go to any store and buy your DJI Phantom for $2,000 and fly it out of your backyard. People are doing it.
Yeah.
So you would be able, I think, 5 years from now to go to a store and buy your own nano satellite. Yeah. But still, I fully agree. The market goes through a transformation. The governments are stepping out. Well, they have been for the last 10 years, and more companies are starting to understand the full potential or the full commercial potential of space. And we'll also see a lot more companies like ourselves, small startups, new space startups, not just these multi-million, multi-billion conglomerates of the old days.
Do you think in the next 10 years we'll have a startup that sets its sights on the moon and so we're back there? Or is that too early a time frame?
It's already happening.
Yeah.
You know, the Google Lunar X Prize initiative that started 2012.
Yeah.
This is exactly what they're doing. Commercial private entities reaching to the moon, and by the end of the decade, as JFK said, we'll see the first commercial entity landing on the moon. Okay. It's already happening.
Yeah.
Not only the Google Lunar X Prize, there are companies. At least 2 that we know of, that this is exactly what they're doing. They're building a commercial business based on a presence or a way to reach the moon and return to Earth. And it's only a matter of time until it will happen. And you know, companies like SpaceX,
with
Elon Musk.
Yep.
Elon Musk has got his eyes set on Mars, Mars colonization. There are companies thinking about asteroid mining.
Well, I was going to say
like
that. I mean, all those Isaac Asimov books I read as a child.
Exactly.
You know, finally it's all happening. You know,
it's all happening. It's all now. It may take. Don't get me wrong. It's not happening tomorrow.
No.
Tomorrow or next week.
Still decades.
It may take 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. But the reality is that humanity is going there because for the same reason going up.
Things looking up.
For the same reason that when we saw the horizon, we had to go there, and when we saw the ocean, we had to sail through the ocean, and when we looked at the sky and the birds, we had to find a way to fly, and we found a way to land on the moon, and it's just a question of time. And what happens today is because there is a commercial value. So it's not just the exploration, pioneering spirit of the humankind, but there's also a business model into that.
Yeah. Well, you know, in 2025 or 2030, you might be sky and space and moon with, you know, little satellites orbiting the moon.
Nice idea.
Very good question. We have ideas about deploying certain constellations around certain areas of the solar system.
Yeah, excellent. That's music to my ears.
But that's down the road.
Yeah. So look, as we get towards the end of the interview, one of the questions I always like to ask, inspired, as the readers have often heard me say, by Ashton Kutcher, who was here for a Lenovo event, and he said that it's always good to ask people what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received to help you get where you are today. And you've already shared some stories about your, you know, incredible experiences in the Israeli military and you know, the pioneering stuff with nanosatellites. But I'll stop talking and ask if you can please share some of that great advice.
Okay, first of all, Ashton, if you see this, give us a call. The best advice I got is make your partners your friends. So if you really love what you do and you enjoy doing it, you'll reach your goals. There will be setbacks, there will be hard times, and if you have your friends with you, you can overcome everything. So this is what I'm doing here, and our company is based on very good friendship outside of working hours, and you should do the same.
Sure. And Meir?
I think the best advice I got was how I was raised and how my wife has always told me, and that is a very simple thing. When you wake up in the morning and you look at yourself in the mirror, ask yourself one question: do you like what you see? Do you like what you see? Not in the way of how do I look? Does my hair look okay?
Not the aesthetics.
Not that, but have you done good? Are you happy with your decisions? Can you look at yourself and say, I have my integrity, I kept my integrity, I kept my professionalism, I'm true to my conscience, I'm true to my friends and to my partners, and I think that's the best advice I've ever got. This is the way I'm handling myself in my life and in my business as well. Fortunately for me, my partner in the company Meidad is exactly the same, and we share the same beliefs and the same values, and I think that it's not just a phrase that people say. If you're true to yourself, you feel better about yourself. And I think it's also the correct way of doing business. When you tell people exactly what you think, everything's on the table, everything's out there.
Say what you mean and
say what you mean and mean what you say, exactly.
I mean, the happy and sad reality of what you're saying is that if people actually did that, if we all lived like that, we'd be living on utopia. Nobody would be hungry. Everybody would have access to technology.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I just wish more people would live like that.
Yes.
Yeah, true. Don't get me wrong. We're not naive.
Yeah.
We know how the world works.
Yeah, sadly.
It's just that we can control what we can control. Well, and within our company, where Meidad is the CTO and I'm the CEO, this is the way we're doing business. Yeah. And this is the way we're developing our technology, and this is the way we're developing our system and our business model. And fortunately for us, so far it's working. We're meeting our goals, we're meeting our schedule. You know, with the checklist that we have, everything so far goes check. And we are very confident in what we're doing. We're also very happy with what we're doing because both of us are techies. are very enthusiastic about space. We've been working on satellites for 20 years, and now it's our opportunity to work on our own satellites and our own space business. So it all comes together, and we're in a very good period of our lives.
It's a wonderful thing to see.
Thank you
putting
very much.
all that energy and effort, and when you're running your own business, well, then the true passion can really come out.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, what is your final message to IT Wire viewers and readers, and to your current and future customers, investors, and users?
Go ahead, boss.
Okay. Well, first of all, be involved. Be involved in Sky and Space. We have a LinkedIn page, we have a Facebook page, we have a website. You're more than welcome to ask us questions, challenge us, give us new ideas, ask us the really hard and tough questions to encourage us to think better about what we're doing, and join us. It's a wonderful adventure. Join us today, so you wouldn't regret in a few years about not joining at the early days.
And Meidad, before I get to you, I'll just say that in Australia, the satellites that we use for the National Broadband Network, called Sky Muster, they actually had a competition where they had an image that was drawn onto the satellite itself. So maybe you want to encourage the children of the world or investors or something to have some sort of message etched onto each satellite, whether you engrave it or print it or something. And so, it's only the 3 satellites in that initial constellation, but it's some sort of message of peace or some affirmation or some praise of God or something that you might want to encourage people to, submit their entries, and when somebody will win, and you'll have the photographs, and that's what will be launched into space. And maybe the future 200 can also be having something similar.
The reason I'm smiling is that we're having these discussions between ourselves about these kind of ideas, not specifically that, but these kind of ideas.
Yeah. So Meidad, what did you want to say to the people watching?
Well, I think that Meir covered all the bases regarding what we would like watchers to be involved and get to know us. We are having open to public events. Yesterday we had one here. And Friday we'll have one in Melbourne.
And that's on your Facebook page, the information.
Yes, absolutely. We're traveling around. It doesn't matter if you're from Australia, Europe, US, or anywhere in the globe. Come to meet us, say hello, enroll into our mailing list, and just be part of this terrific era we're living in which if you have your mind set to something, you can really achieve it.
Sure. Well, Meidad and Meir, thank you very much for your time today. I wish you the best of luck, and I look forward to using your service sometime in the future.
Thank you very much, Alex, and we would love to have you as our customer.
Thank you. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Sure.